I returned at noon to tend to my sick husband, and uncovered a truth that broke my heart. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
It was just past noon when I came home, thinking it would be one of those ordinary, quiet days. I'd woken up that morning with a sense of calm, the kind you get when you believe everything in your life is safe, predictable, and simple. My husband had been sick for a few weeks, and my only thought as I walked into our home was to check on him, make sure he was resting, and maybe bring him a cup of tea. The sunlight spilled through the windows in lazy beams, dust motes floating in the air, and everything smelled familiar. Coffee, laundry, a faint trace of the candles I had lit the night before. I expected peace. I expected quiet. But as soon as I stepped inside, I realized nothing was as it seemed. At first, I thought I was imagining things. There was a sound, a voice, soft and muffled at first, but it carried just enough to make me pause. My heart jumped into my throat. I froze, mid-step, as the words hit me. It was him, my husband, speaking, but not the loving, caring voice I knew. The tone was sharp, secretive, and worse, it carried something I wasn't supposed to hear, something that instantly shredded every idea I had of our life together. My body went cold. My hands shook, and I pressed my back against the wall, telling myself to breathe, to calm down, but my mind raced faster than it ever had before. Could this be real? Could the person I had trusted with my whole heart, the one I had nursed through sickness and celebrated through joy, really be hiding something so devastating? The words kept coming, each one a blow, each one pulling me further into a reality I had never imagined. It wasn't just a lie. It was a secret so enormous, so dangerous to everything we had, that it felt like the walls themselves were closing in around me. I wanted to run, to escape, to shut my ears and pretend it wasn't happening, but I couldn't. Some part of me knew I had to hear it all, had to know the full truth, even if it destroyed everything I had ever believed. I remember standing there, frozen, my mind a storm of fear, disbelief, and heartbreak. The seconds stretched, torturous and slow. My body ached with tension, every muscle wound tight as I tried to process what I had just discovered. My husband was still speaking, unaware of the storm raging in the doorway, unaware that with each word, he was pulling our life apart. And I realized, as the final syllables hit my ears, that nothing would ever be the same again. That afternoon, the ordinary world I had taken for granted came crashing down around me in a way I could have never anticipated. Even after the voice faded, even after the room returned to the quiet I had expected, I couldn't move. I watched him, my heart racing, my stomach twisting in ways I had never felt before. The man I loved, the life I thought I knew, suddenly seemed like a story someone else was telling. A story I had been living inside without realizing how fragile it was. My hands were shaking. My chest was tight. Every instinct screamed at me to confront him, to demand answers, to reclaim the world that had been stolen from me in mere moments. But fear rooted me to the spot. I didn't know what I could handle. I didn't know if I was ready to face the truth in full. I spent hours that afternoon in a kind of suspended terror, trying to act normal, trying to watch without being noticed, trying to understand. Every glance, every movement, every small gesture was loaded with meaning I had never suspected before. The way he shifted his weight, the way he spoke on the phone with subtle urgency, the little things he hid from me. Suddenly, they all made sense, and yet made everything worse. Each discovery sent another wave of shock through me, Another spike of fear. Another pang of grief. I was living inside a nightmare that had started on the most ordinary of days. Then I found it. The note. I wasn't looking for it. At least I told myself I wasn't. But it was there, almost carelessly placed on the counter, as if someone had forgotten it. The words tore through me like fire. My knees went weak. My hands could barely hold the paper, my mind screaming against the reality it could no longer ignore. It confirmed everything I had been too afraid to believe, and yet, there it was in black and white. My husband, the person I trusted more than anyone else in the world, had been hiding something that would change our lives forever. And I realized, in a way that felt like the world had tilted on its axis, that this wasn't just about betrayal. It was bigger, darker, and far more complicated than I had ever imagined. That afternoon, I learned something I couldn't unlearn. Some secrets have a way of breaking the world around them, of shattering the life you thought you knew, and forcing you to confront truths you never wanted to see. And yet, even in that moment of shock and terror, a small, stubborn part of me knew that running or hiding would solve nothing. I had to face this, even if it meant facing the deepest betrayal of my life. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how much damage had been done, or how far the consequences would reach. All I knew was that everything I thought I knew about my husband, about our life, and about trust had been destroyed in a single, ordinary afternoon. And as I stood there, frozen in disbelief, I realized one terrifying fact. My life would never, ever be the same again. The hours after that discovery felt like a blur, yet every second was painfully clear in my mind. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. My body moved on autopilot, while my mind raced at impossible speeds, running through every possible scenario, every word, every action that had led to this moment. I kept replaying what I had overheard, what I had read, what I had never wanted to see. My hands would tremble at the smallest sound, the creak of the floorboards, the rustle of papers, even the faintest cough from the bedroom. Everything became a potential clue, and yet the more I tried to make sense of it, the more lost I felt. I started noticing things I had never paid attention to before. Little inconsistencies in our conversations, moments of hesitation, subtle glances that didn't match the words he spoke. The home I had once felt safe in now felt like a labyrinth of half-truths and hidden intentions. My husband moved around me, calm, familiar, unaware, or maybe pretending I didn't know. And the thing that scared me most was wondering whether he really was pretending, or if I had just been too naive to notice the cracks in our life until now. I knew I couldn't confront him yet. Not without preparation, not without understanding the full scope of the truth. But the more I observed, the more I realized that the secret I had stumbled upon wasn't just personal. It was something that could have consequences far beyond our home. It wasn't a simple betrayal of trust. It was a violation that carried weight, danger, and the kind of consequences that could change lives. My chest ached with both fear and anger, and I found myself trembling not only for myself, but for what might happen if this secret was ever revealed. Days passed in this tense, surreal routine. I would check on him, talk to him, laugh with him, all while my mind raced with suspicions I couldn't fully confront. Each interaction carried hidden questions I dared not ask out loud. Each smile he gave me felt like a challenge, a reminder that the person I loved could still be a stranger hiding in plain sight. And yet, a part of me clung to hope. Hope that somehow, some way, there might be an explanation, a reason, a way to reclaim the life that had been shattered in a single afternoon. Then came the moment, that made everything impossible to ignore. I caught him red-handed, not by accident, but by instinct. Something in his behavior drew me in, something familiar yet foreign, and I followed it quietly, cautiously. What I saw confirmed my worst fears. The secret he had hidden wasn't small. It wasn't trivial. It was monumental. And it wasn't just about him. It affected me, our life, our trust. And horrifyingly, it extended to a world outside our home in ways I could barely comprehend. Fear and anger battled inside me. I felt paralyzed and furious at the same time. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to demand answers, to run, to hide, to do everything and nothing all at once. And yet, even in the midst of that chaos, a strange clarity emerged. I understood that I had to face this secret head-on, that pretending it didn't exist would only make the fallout worse, and that whatever happened next would define not only my life, but the way I saw myself, my husband, and the world around us. But just as I prepared to confront him, just as I was ready to demand truth, I realized that this confrontation would not be simple. It wouldn't be a conversation, a confession, or a resolution. The secret had consequences beyond our home, and I had no idea how deep the web went. I felt a chill run through me as I wondered what might happen if the truth came out, if the lies unraveled, if the life I thought I knew was completely destroyed. And yet, even in that terror, I knew I couldn't back down. I had to see it too. Rue. I had to face whatever came next, no matter how terrifying it might be. The tension built inside me like a storm ready to break. Every sound, every shadow, every movement seemed amplified, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I knew the moment of reckoning was coming, the moment where everything I had ignored, every hidden truth, every lie would be exposed, and I would have to confront it, or lose myself entirely. And as I took a shaky breath, steeling myself for what was to come, I realized that once this secret came to light, nothing could ever go back to the way it was. Not our home, not our marriage, not me. I didn't know then exactly how it would end. I didn't know if I could survive the revelation, if the truth would destroy us completely, or if somehow we could rebuild from the ashes. All I knew was that the ordinary life I had once taken for granted was gone, replaced by fear, suspicion, and a knowledge that the person I loved, and thought I knew, was hiding something that would change everything. And in that terrifying, uncertain moment, I realized that my life had been altered forever. I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. The secret I had uncovered was no longer a shadow lingering at the edges of our home. It had become a storm roaring in the center of my life, and I could no longer ignore it. My hands were trembling as I approached him, my chest tight, my mind racing with questions I was terrified to ask. Every step I took toward him felt like walking across a floor made of glass, knowing it could shatter beneath me at any moment. He looked up, sensing the shift in me. His eyes widened for a fraction of a second, then hardened, as if he knew that whatever was about to happen would change us both forever. I tried to speak, tried to form the words, but they stuck in my throat. How could I describe the betrayal that had unfolded in hours, the truth that had turned my ordinary life into a nightmare? I realized that nothing I could say would ever fully capture the depth of shock, fear, and heartbreak I felt. And then it happened. The full scope of what he had hidden became undeniable. I saw the evidence, undeniable and raw, a reality that hit me harder than any warning could have prepared me for. My world collapsed in that instant. It wasn't just that he had kept a secret. It was the scale, the implications, the realization that I had been living beside someone I no longer recognized. Everything I had believed about our life, about trust, about love itself, came crashing down in a torrent of disbelief and sorrow. I felt anger and fear mixing together into something almost physical, a knot tightening in my chest so strongly I could barely breathe. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make him feel the pain that was burning through me, but I was paralyzed by the enormity of it all. The betrayal wasn't simple. It wasn't small. It stretched beyond our home, beyond our lives, touching realities I could hardly comprehend. And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about us. It was about a deeper injustice, one that forced me to confront truths I had been blind to for far too long. Tears ran down my cheeks as I tried to process everything at once. The man I loved, the life I had built, and the trust I had carried so carefully were all gone, replaced by a void of uncertainty and fear. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of emotion, every wave carrying heartbreak, every current pulling me deeper into despair. And yet, amid the chaos, a spark of clarity emerged. I couldn't let this destroy me. I had to survive it, understand it, and face it with every ounce of strength I had left. Even as I braced myself to confront him fully, even as the anger and grief threatened to consume me, I realized the terrifying truth. Some secrets are bigger than any single person can handle. They have consequences that ripple outward, affecting lives in ways you can't predict, in ways you can't control. And as I stared at him, waiting for answers, waiting for some shred of honesty, I knew that whatever came next would define not just our marriage, but who I was as a person and what I could endure. The tension was unbearable. Every second felt stretched, every breath heavy with anticipation. I wanted to ask everything, to demand everything, but I feared that opening my mouth would unleash a storm I couldn't contain. And in that moment of unbearable intensity, I realized that life had forced me into a position I never wanted, a confrontation that would either break me completely or reveal a strength I didn't know I had. And then the unthinkable happened. The truth, raw and undeniable, spilled out between us. And for the first time, I saw him, not the man I thought I knew, but someone entirely different. It was terrifying, devastating, and yet impossibly real. And in that instant, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. Not our home, not our love, not me. The person I had trusted with my entire heart had become a stranger, and the consequences of that secret would echo far beyond anything I could have imagined. I couldn't look away. The truth was out now, spilling into the room like a storm I had no control over. Every word, every confession, cut deeper than I could have imagined. My chest felt tight, my stomach churned, and my hands shook as if the weight of the world rested on them. I had always believed love could withstand anything, but this was something else entirely. This was a betrayal that wasn't just about lies, but about the foundation of my entire life crumbling beneath me. I tried to process it, tried to find a thread of reason, a spark of explanation, but there was none. Nothing could make this make sense. The man I had trusted with my heart, the person who had been my anchor through sickness and quiet nights, was someone I didn't know at all, and my mind raced through every memory, every moment we had shared, and suddenly, everything felt tainted, uncertain. Was any of it real? Or had I been living in a fragile illusion my whole life? Fear rose in me first, sharp and consuming. I felt exposed, helpless, unsure of what the consequences might be. The secret wasn't small. It had power, reach, and implications I couldn't begin to grasp. I was terrified for what it could mean, not just for me, but for everything and everyone connected to it. And yet, anger followed swiftly, hot and relentless, filling every part of me that had ever loved him blindly. How could someone I loved do this? How could someone I trusted hide a truth so enormous that it shattered everything we had built? I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to punish him in some way. Anything to release the hurricane inside me. But the words didn't come. They were trapped, lodged somewhere between my fear, my heartbreak, and my disbelief. All I could do was stare, trembling, as the weight of the revelation pressed down on me. It was as if time had slowed, each second stretching endlessly, every heartbeat a reminder of the life I had lost, even before I had fully processed it. And then came the crushing clarity. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It reflected something far bigger, a harsh reality I had ignored for too long. It wasn't just about trust. It was about injustice, about the ways the world allows secrets and lies to fester, about the subtle ways lives can be manipulated and damaged without the victims ever suspecting. The depth of it hit me harder than the personal betrayal itself. I wasn't just confronting a hidden truth about my marriage. I was confronting a truth about the world I lived in, a world where deception could thrive and devastate in silence. Tears streamed down my face as I realized that this confrontation, this raw, painful exposure, was inevitable. I had to face it head on, no matter how terrifying it was. There was no turning back. Every instinct in me screamed to escape, to run, to pretend I didn't know. But deep inside, I knew that surviving this meant facing it fully, understanding it, and enduring it, no matter the cost. The room felt smaller, the walls closer, my heart pounding in my ears. And in that moment, I understood that life as I had known it was gone. The love I thought was unshakable had been tested and found fragile. The man I had trusted with everything was a stranger, and the world we had built together had been irrevocably altered. All that remained was the truth, raw and undeniable, and the realization that I would never be the same again. Even as I stood there, trembling and broken, a small, stubborn part of me knew I had to survive. I had to carry forward, to find strength in the wreckage, to face the consequences, and to learn from the betrayal. The revelation was complete. The climax of fear, heartbreak, and shock had arrived, and it would define everything that came next. The storm eventually passed, though the calm that followed was fragile and uncertain. I stood in our home, surrounded by the familiar sights and smells that had once brought comfort, and yet everything felt different. The truth had changed it all, the person I had loved, the life I had trusted, even the way I saw myself. The ordinary walls that had held laughter and warmth now seemed like silent witnesses to a life I could never reclaim. I spent days in quiet reflection, sometimes numb, sometimes consumed with emotion I could barely contain. The anger, the heartbreak, the betrayal, it all came in waves, crashing over me relentlessly. But gradually, a small clarity emerged. I understood that surviving this wasn't about undoing the past or pretending the pain didn't exist. It was about acknowledging the truth, facing it, and finding a way to carry forward. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could choose how it shaped me. In confronting this secret, I also realized something bigger. The pain I had experienced, the shock and heartbreak, wasn't just my story. It was a reflection of a wider reality. Deception, hidden truths, and injustice exist far beyond any single home or relationship. Some people live their entire lives under the weight of secrets that destroy trust and crush hope. And while my experience was personal, It mirrored a truth that countless others face every day. An invisible struggle, a quiet heartbreak, a reality often ignored until it explodes in the lives of those who least expect it. I learned that strength doesn't come from avoiding betrayal or hardship. It comes from facing it, surviving it, and refusing to let it define who you are. I began rebuilding, not by forgetting, but by remembering and understanding. By acknowledging the truth, I reclaimed the power that had been stolen from me. I realized that pain can teach resilience, that betrayal can reveal hidden strength, and that facing injustice, no matter how personal or far-reaching, is a step toward reclaiming control over your own life. And as I stand here now, reflecting on everything that happened, I can't help but ask, how well do we truly know the people we love? How many secrets remain buried, waiting to shatter our lives when we least expect it? This isn't just my story. It's a warning, a lesson, and a reminder that truth, no matter how devastating, is a force we must confront. Because in facing it, we find not only clarity, but a chance to reclaim ourselves and the life we thought we had lost forever.